going? Dan Shinder here on Drum Talk TV, winding down 2023, and I'm here with a first-time offender here on Drum Talk TV, someone whose drumming I literally have fallen in love with. We'll talk about that in a moment. Asaf Sirkis he's a solo artist, he's a composer, he's a producer, and he not too long ago joined the amazing band Soft Machine, and he has toured worldwide and recorded over 100 albums. Dude, when are you gonna get busy? Like, what's going on with that? He's been playing with many renowned jazz and world musicians like our friend Jeff Berlin, who co-hosted the Drum Talk TV 10-year anniversary, our friend Gary Husband, who was on recently, Kenny Wheeler, John Abercrombie, Laurie Coryell, many other great musicians. Everybody, please welcome with me, Asaf. How are you? How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Well, I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be on the show.
Yeah, thank you. I want to tell everybody the reason why I have fallen in love with your drumming and your musicality. And I touched on this a little bit before we started, but for those of you who follow Drum Talk TV and watch my show, Dan's Almost Daily Vlog, you might already be very familiar with a lot of the music I play. And for those of you who don't, well, you can just jump off the internet. No, I'm kidding. No, some of the music I've been into since I was a little boy, and I'm in my 60s now, is old Genesis. Oh, actually, all of the Genesis catalog. Jethro Tull, yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Gentle Giant, bands like that, Peter Gabriel, Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and a lot of those bands have really capitalized on dynamics. And a lot of drummers become drummers because they just want to hit stuff. They just want to bash on things. They don't want to learn music theory. But Asaf has really carved a niche with his own music, with dynamics and being very, I'm going to say, eloquent with your drumming, and almost like ballet that you can hear, but hitting things. And I think in today's world, musically, that's not common. So Asaf, tell us how you got into drumming, why the drums, and how stylistically you've gone in that direction.
I actually started before I was playing any instrument. You know, my brother and my father used to be musicians. Kind of, my father was like an amateur accordion player and played a bit of piano. My brother played piano, so we had a piano at home, and I was just sometimes when my brother was not practicing, I would just mess around at the piano. And basically, I didn't understand it till later, but I was basically making my first attempt to compose music just by playing around on the piano.
And improvising, right?
Yeah, just improvising and finding some stuff and then repeating the same thing and say, oh, I've got this thing I can repeat. And that was basically the beginning of my musical journey. Of course, a lot of music I learned by ear from listening to a lot of classical music. That's what was played at home mostly. And the first instrument I wanted to play was the bass, because the electric bass. And I was a big fan of the Beatles, and I really wanted to be like Paul McCartney, you know.
Are you left-handed?
I am left-handed, yes.
Oh, wow, that's right. Interesting.
Yeah. So I was a huge Beatle, I still am a huge Beatle fan, and I wanted to play the electric bass. There you go, yes. And but the only one problem at that time when I was growing up, back in the early mid-70s, in Israel, there weren't not so many bass players at all. I mean, there were some classical upright bass players, but no
rock or pop or jazz.
Yeah, that was quite a new thing in Israel. For a long time, they didn't have bass players over there. So I think there was one or two at that time, and they were just going from one club to another, doing all the gigs.
Well, I think I remember them. It was Moishe Pipik and Henry Eshkabibel.
something like that. Yeah, along those lines. And and so but I couldn't find a teacher. Basically, I couldn't find a bass teacher, and so the next best thing was the drums. And that's how I started learning the drums when I was about I would say 11 or 12 years old. My parents got me a student kit, and I started playing drums. And just listening to all that music, starting from, the Beatles, which was my favorite, and then later the Police, I was a total fan of that music, Stuart Copeland and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And and I also, at home, lots of classical music of all kinds, and on the streets, lots of Arabic music growing up in Israel, Arabic pop, Arabic music, a lot of klezmer, lots of East European style music.
I want to jump in and tell you that on my laptop over here, one of the things I always have queued up is the National Arab Orchestra. And their music is amazing. And one of my most favorite videos by them is where it's the National Arab Orchestra with about a third of the players mixed in are youngsters that are probably teenage years, and they're amazing. It's such enchanting music. And we talked about this earlier. I'm Jewish. My heritage comes from Israel and then Eastern European, Ukraine, Russia to the United States. And this is the wonderful things about music, is that it can stitch and weave all cultures, races, nationalities together the same way that food does, I think. I think
Absolutely.
that food and music is really what brings us together and makes everybody the same, if you will. We all really want the same thing. We want to be safe. We want our children to be safe. We want to be happy, healthy, and enjoy life. And music and food, what other great way with your clothes on to enjoy life, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and you're right, especially in Israel, of all places, it's just a hodgepodge of so many people. I like to call it a big goulash of culture,
Right.
So it's kind of all these people coming from all over the globe, bringing their music, their rhythm, their food, their accent, their social codes and everything.
So, fashion, dance, everything really.
Everything. I grew up in a Yemenite neighborhood where I heard, and there's a very particular, it's very kind of interesting particular community of Yemenite Jewish people in Israel. And they brought their food, and they brought their accents, and they brought their rhythms, which were insane, just amazing rhythms. And I grew up listening, obviously from afar, because I was not in their tribe, so to speak. But I could, from the window, I could always see them dancing and playing on metal tins, basically.
Interesting.
They didn't really have drums, and that was quite rhythmically an influential thing for me.
Did they play the metal tins in the style of like Doombeck and things like that, or?
Well, yes, in a way, yes. They're similar rhythms in that sense. They're simple Arabic, you can say Arabic sounding rhythms, but they had a special flavor. Which, because Yemen is kind of almost, it's like almost North African kind of, there is a sense of swing, of pushing and pulling in the rhythm that you don't get so much in, let's say, Syrian or Lebanese or Egyptian style.
Moroccan,
You do get that. You do get a bit of a swing, a bit of a like lilt in the rhythm. But with the Yemenite, sometimes you just don't know where one is because the rhythm is so going.
It's a moving target, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And that really fascinated me for a long time, and I studied some of that music and tried to play some of those rhythms later on. Yeah.
So how old were you when you moved? And folks, I'm going to play some videos in a moment, so hang in there, of Asaf's amazing, not just drumming, but his music that he's playing to. How old were you when you moved to London, and how did that culturally influence your musical influences being in London with that melting pot?
Well, I moved to London when I was about 28. That was around 1999. And that was a cultural shock for me because England is a very, very, very different place than Israel.
Yeah.
Israel, with all its cultural variety, is a very, very different. It's a Mediterranean. It's a Middle Eastern place, and London or England is a very culturally very, very different place.
It was your gateway to the West, basically, right?
Yes,
Musically,
yes,
culturally, and
exactly. I wanted to explore more opportunities for music, for my own music, and also, just to, play with experience playing and touring around the world. Israel is a great place, but it's a very small place. And I wanted just to go out there and apply what I can do, hopefully to the music that I could find. And so in '99 I moved, and it took a little while, but after I think about 18 months in England of being completely workless and skinned, like we say in England, I started to get some work, and being able to pay my bills and everything. And from then on, it became easier and easier. I bought a car, and it became a little bit better in that sense.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to play some of your music and show everybody that. The first thing we're going to play is an excerpt of Time for Space number 74, Eridiana Lake. Check this out, folks. And what I want the drummers watching and other musicians and music fans to pay attention to is really the dynamics and the delicacy that could be served up in drumming, and not just bashing, which is okay. It has its place. But check this out. Just love that. I have to play another for everybody, and then we'll talk about your music, and we'll talk about how you got this Soft Machine gig as well. So I want to play, I think, Time for Space number 81, Upstream. Here we go, folks. Check this out. I just love this style. And honestly, it's kind of a throwback for me for when I first discovered jazz fusion. And my introduction to jazz fusion was from an older cousin. I was probably 13 or 14. So this was in 1953. Just kidding. This was probably this was probably in 1975 or 76, and my cousin turned me on to Return to Forever and the album Romantic Warrior. And I think to me that is the gateway music to fusion. Nothing against Mahavishnu Orchestra, but or Billy Cobham and all those guys who were really the forefathers of fusion music. But something about Romantic Warrior that was very structured yet free form, and your drumming and that music reminds me of that kind of style so many years forward. Because if I remember correctly, Romantic Warrior by Return to Forever came out in 1976. And for those who don't know, who have either lived under a rock or are too young to know, that featured the late great Chick Corea on keyboards, Al DeMilla on guitar, Stanley Clarke on bass, and the amazing Lenny White on drums. And I had the fortunate opportunity to be taken by a couple friends for my 22nd birthday to see those four live. And it was just mind-blowing. And the thing about that music, and I'm interested to know, Asaf, what your introduction to that style is, because when I heard that music, I had a bit of experience with progressive rock, but most of my experience in music, other than traditional jazz, was Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, that sort of stuff. Genesis, yes, ELP, as I mentioned earlier. But when I heard Romantic Warrior and the album Return to Forever and the album Romantic Warrior, the first thing that came to my mind is, oh, so there's no rules. There's no boundaries. You can basically do anything. And it was like taking psychedelics and mind expanding to just break down any preconceived barriers of music. So I'm really curious what your influences are in that music and what your gateway was to that genre.
Yeah, well, it's really, really very similar story. I have a very similar story to what you're telling me.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because I grew up with a lot of progressive rock. I started with the whole Beatles and Police thing, but then, got into progressive rock and so on, and then into what was at the time when I was growing up in Israel, was the jazz of the time, which was an electric jazz or fusion or whatever you call it. And, my sister, she was quite, she's older than me and she's quite ahead of me in terms of her listening. She was at the time, studying, she was hanging out with a lot of artists. She's herself an artist. And she brought home a lot of vinyls and cassettes and latest CDs and everything of all kinds of stuff, so the whole progressive rock thing I got from her, then the whole ECM thing, which was quite new at the time,
Right.
Mid-70s, late 70s and so on. And then, at that time when I was growing up, which was like in my teens, which was like from 1980 and so on, it was kind of a good time in Israel, relatively speaking, financially. So Israel could afford some bands who were doing on world tours to come in. So my sister would take me to see all these amazing bands, jazz bands at the time. So I've seen Miles Davis, VSOP, I've seen Chick Corea, I've seen this Chick Corea Electric Band, the famous first album they had, Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Oh, wow.
Report, Pat Metheny, all these amazing bands were coming through on their tours and stopping by in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. And me and my sister, she would take me like a little boy, and we would go and see all these gigs. And of course, this left a huge impression on me, and that's where and so it is quite kind of amazing, kind of a very, very similar story to what you were telling earlier. It's just that initial shock of seeing all this amazing new music, and then saying, I want to become like this, I want to become like that, and then from there it starts.
That is so neat. Before we talk about how you got into being the live drummer for Soft Machine, let's talk about your album Time for Space. Talk about those compositions and what is that all about for those who don't know?
Well, Time for Space is not really an album. It's a video series on YouTube, which you can watch free of charge, ad free. It's there on YouTube. It's called Time for Space Music Diary, and it's an ongoing series. So at the moment, there are about, I think I've recorded about 116 videos.
Oh, wow.
And each one of these pieces are pieces that I write and make my own play along.
Right, you're playing all the music, right?
I'm writing, playing the music on a keyboard, MIDI keyboard, and then playing it on the drums, filming it, mixing it, everything. So
that's awesome.
It all started during the lockdown time, when really there was nothing else to do except looking at a diary that looked so wide that I needed sunglasses to just look at it. And wondering, what shall I do next? So in order to keep my sanity, I started to, I remember, you know how it is before COVID, we were all kind of going around our tail and being busy and being busy and being busy.
Right.
And so suddenly there's all this time, and I remembered how I love writing music. And over the years, I wrote many, many different pieces. A lot of them, I would say 98% of them never got used for any of my other albums.
Wow.
So I said, okay, let me look at those things. And I looked at those old files. And, I used to make play along for myself, but just for myself, not just for practice, to see if that tune works for the next album or that tune works for that band and so on. And those were really clunky, awful, awful MIDI sounding play-alongs, but they did the job just for practice. And I said, wait a second, maybe I can actually play that and film. I had at the time a very, very cheap Zoom thing that records the audio and the video.
Yeah.
And so I tried it, and I started in 2020, and decided, okay, let's try to release this gradually. This 3 pieces in a month or something like that. Try to release it gradually, and also within that time, I've also come back to writing music, so I have even more. So there isn't a shortage of music. I'm just, at the moment, it's just that managing the time between touring and recording all these and editing all these videos, which, as you know, can be kind of time consuming. But I still love doing it, and I always like releasing new videos and writing new pieces and seeing how they work as pieces.
Right.
In a way, it started as a way for me to just keep in shape, and play music, which is something you mentioned earlier about being musical. For me, it's more important. That is more important for me to practice playing a musical piece than, let's say, from a book or from some exercises that I've picked up from someone. Right. So those are my exercises, basically, if you can call it. Yeah. This is the book. That's the book I'm exercising from, which is the music, which I feel that when I play, and especially when I play the music that I write for the drums, for myself to play, it's got everything that I need in it in order for me to keep in shape and to go on and do other things. So it keeps me in shape. I love doing it, I love releasing music, and yeah, as I said, there's quite a lot of videos there, and there's lots
Yeah.
more, actually. There's lots more, and I'm preparing those as we speak,
Yeah,
and
it created an incredible wide body of music. Let's play a
yeah.
little bit of one more. Let's do Time for Space number 101, Waterfall. Check this out, folks. Ah, that's so beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me asking, how much older is your sister than you, who had the
Oh,
influence of this music to bring you to?
yeah, she's a few years older, so she grew up around the same time, basically, that I was there. So, but I was the little the little brother, so she would take me everywhere with her. So that's how I got to be exposed to all sorts of music, well, not only music but also arts, architecture. She was learning and hanging out with a lot of people that were
Oh, that's
artists,
great.
musicians, and architecture students, and so on.
Awesome.
And yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention, you said the album, the Time for Space. Actually, there is an album. It's not like an official album, but it's an album. It's like a play-along album.
Okay.
So people, like people, drummers who enjoys the videos and want to play themselves on some of these pieces, they can go to my Bandcamp, and then they can download these pieces, or most of them, as a play along without a click, and then with a click, and separately with a click if you want to make a video.
Nice.
And so yeah, there is an album, actually, a few albums. So
Great. Tell us how to find you on Bandcamp, and our producer Steven will put that in the comments in the post right now.
yeah, I mean, I'll send you a link, but
Okay.
there's I have my own page which will have all the Time for Space
Great.
play along series as a play along for drummers.
That's a lot of music.
Yes, I mean, in the Bandcamp at the moment, there's only 75 of them, I think.
That's a lot, though. That's great.
Yeah, but I think when I get a minute after the tour, I'll release another 30 or so as a play along. So
Great.
it's all ready. I just need to download it and everything. So
Great. Let's talk about Soft Machine. What
yes.
was your attraction to that music, and how did you get the gig? And let's talk about that whole universe.
Oh yes, I mean the whole Soft Machine started very early in my late teens. Around when I was maybe 18 or 19 or even 20. I heard bundles which is one of Soft Machine's album with
Yeah.
Alan Holdsworth,
Yeah.
which I was a huge fan of. And before that, I was listening to some of their older stuff that had Robert Wyatt on it. Now, Robert Wyatt for me is, just one of the most amazing singer-songwriters. So I was really, I really listened to almost everything he's done, and was quite an influential music for me. So through Robert and Alan, somehow it came together, and I realized that there is this band called Soft Machine, and very earlier on I started to listen to some of their albums and so on. And then when I came to UK, I met John Etheridge, who I played with occasionally, not very much, but occasionally over the years. I think one of the first gigs I did in the UK was actually with him in 99 or 2000. And was not Soft Machine, though Soft Machine was not active at that time.
Right.
And then since I think 2016, when the late John Marshall, who was, very sadly passed away not a long time ago, John was not very well. He was quite old at that time, maybe almost 80 at that time, and he had on and off kind of health problems. So I would sometimes dep him out, sub him for this kind of always late last minute gig. Oh, what are you doing now? Can you come to Trieste in Italy or something like this? was like this, and so I would sometimes sub John Marshall when he couldn't travel. Sometimes Gary Husband would do that. Sometimes Nick Franz and a bunch of other people would kind of rescue the band here and there when John was not around. And then before the beginning of this year, the band manager, Leonardo Pavkovic, who is also manager of Moon June Records, called me up and said, look, we need a new drummer. John Marshall wants to officially retire. So do you want to do the band? Yeah, of course I do.
Wait. How long did you think about it?
Well,
2 seconds? A minute?
Not very long. It wasn't very perceivable in terms of time. But yeah, I was really happy. I mean, I was always really happy to listen and to play with them, and I'm happy that I did those subs, because I got to know some of their set list. And just get to know them as a band a bit more. Later on, they changed their bass player as well, so there were a few changes in the band at the moment. But yeah, it's just amazing. We just done a gig last night, which was really unbelievable in terms of, this band is really like a band. It's like there's such a it's just a band, we play a lot together, we do many gigs, and for a drummer, it's amazing, because the material itself is very, very interesting. It's very, thought-provoking. It's really kind of challenges your creativity in many, many different ways. A lot of odd-time signatures, a lot of odd harmonies, and a lot of free improv parts where you really have to go by ear all the time. And just tell me, just play as loud as fast as you can possibly want. And it's just an amazing band for a drummer. And I also feel very honored to, step in John Marshall's shoes.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of his playing and his spirit in drums, drum spirit. And it's a big honor for me to be in that band also because of that.
That's awesome. What is happening currently with Soft Machine, or what are the plans for 2024?
Well, the new album has been released, and basically we are touring the album, and now we basically.
And by the way, I don't have the album cover handy. That's a big fail on my part. Maybe you have it, but if I remember, it's very retro, right? A bit psychedelic retro to some degree.
Yeah, I don't have it now. Sorry.
I should have had it.
In a box somewhere.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a great album, and it's we're going to tour the album also in next year, and we're already starting to talk about plans for another recording with me on it, and also the new bass player.
Great. Are you coming to the US on the tour?
We had just been in the US actually in October. In October we were in the US. But we're coming back. We're coming back in June and July, hopefully, and then also in September.
Okay, great.
So,
great. I'd
yeah,
love to catch up with you there. We'll do something in person.
Would be great to meet you, man.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we decided to get out of the big city life. I'm from Los Angeles. My wife is from the Bronx. We met in Las Vegas. We lived there for years. And then we had kind of a screw it moment. And we first moved to the East Phoenix Valley and lived in East Mesa for a while. But 3 months later, on a trip, we've discovered this little mining town from the 1800s called Globe up in the mountains. And we started coming up for lunch, and my wife and I both love history, and we just kind of fell in love with the city. It's a city technically, but for us, coming from a big, multiple metropoli, it's a town, a shtetl, if you will. And my wife one day at lunch here said, I think I want to move to Globe. And I said, great, I'll visit you every other weekend. And we looked for about 3 months and found a place that fit. And December 1st will be 7 years we've lived here, and there's like 7,200 people here. It's a whole different world than the way we both grew up in. And it's interesting, but it's neat. It's neat. Like I spoke yesterday at Arizona State University to a bunch of students. So that was our chance to get down to the valley and see the city and get out and go back, back to our little home under the tree on the hill, if you will. So it's been interesting, but we're near, closest to Phoenix. Tucson is 2 hours south. I grew up in LA. That's not that far. We got a bunch of our kids live in SoCal and Las Vegas. So I'm sure you'll hit somewhere in that sphere where we'll be able to make plans and come see you in person. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I'll let you know.
That'd be great. So now it's time for the Asaf Sirkis fun fact section of the interview. So I'm going to ask you some questions that have nothing to do with music or production or writing or drumming. It's more about you. So when you're not playing music or creating or rehearsing or touring or recording or producing, what do you like to do?
Well, I like to read a lot.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Mostly nonfiction, actually.
Great.
Variety of subjects. Currently I'm studying some psychology. We just spoke before the interview. I just been reading Kenny Aronoff's autobiography, which is a lot of fun to read.
Yeah.
I recommend to any drummer. It really captures the spirit of the 70s and 80s, in the pop rock business in America and also globally. So. That was a lot of fun. I like to keep in shape. do a lot of exercise, keep a healthy diet, meditate when I can. Just keep a balanced life whenever I can, because as you know, the life of being a creator of music or an artist, you can say, and especially touring musician, can be extremely unbalanced.
Yeah.
Just trying always to find myself in a center, and get back to myself before I go off again on tours and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I like to do.
That's great. Where in the world have you never been to that is number one on your list, other than my house?
India.
India. Ooh, nice. And what's the attraction to India? Is it the food? Is it the spices? Is it the music?
Indian music. Yeah, I've been studying Indian music for the last 25 years. And,
wow. So are you into the Carnatic singing?
Carnatic, yes. Carnatic, yes. Yeah. Luckily, there is a lot. It's a huge community of South Indian musicians and South Indian in general in London. So I hooked up with an amazing teacher, and he taught me the spoken rhythmic language, which is called Konakol. I still sometimes do concerts with him, which are completely Carnatic classical music.
Do you want to give us a little sample?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I love that music. I love that music.
I mean, Konakol is a very math-oriented, or kind of almost like geometry in rhythm.
Right.
Let me think of something. Something small and simple.
Okay.
Takita tango, takita tango, takita tango, takita tango, takita tango, takita tom, takita tango, takita tom, takita tango, takita tom, takita tango, takita tango, takita tango, takita tango, takita tango, takita tom, takita tom, takita tom.
I love it. Wonderful music. I love it. And the Mridangam, along with the tablas, are probably the two most challenging percussion instruments to play. Certainly the darbuka, the doumbek, the djembe, they're all can be challenging, but I think the Mridangam is really something. And the Tamil is,
yes.
Yeah, you got the caps on fingers and a stick, and it's like you hold it like a barrel.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a gentleman who we have been featuring for about 9 of the almost 11 years of Drum Talk TV, Dr. Abdul. Stephen, help me out. What's Abdul's name? Hamil. And his music is amazing. What he does with teacups. And what he does with the Tamil, it's amazing. I love that that's your region of choice, because there's so much rich culture there, and a lot of it, stemming from music, the music and the singing and the dance and the fashion and everything. So that's awesome.
The rhythmic language of India has really opened my eyes to a lot of rhythm that was otherwise unseen before I was exposed to that tradition. So I have learned so much and still learning a lot from it. Of course, I'm nothing like anything like my teacher or some of the amazing masters there's out there who that's what they do every day, all day since they are 3 years old. But it has expanded and enriched my rhythmic life in a very, very profound way. And I've actually got a little course on the internet, on my YouTube channel, which is called Mastering Rhythm with Konakol. If anyone wants to check that out, again, it's free, and most of it is also ad-free. It's like a whole course in the basics of Konakol, South Indian vocal percussion, and take some of the very basics rhythmic syllables and tries to translate it to something that a Western musician can benefit from.
Oh, that's great. That's a nice buffer. And I want to correct myself. I had the right letters, but in the wrong order. It's Dr. Abdul Halim, who we've been featuring for about 9 years of our 11 years on Drum Talk TV. Teacups, Meridangam, the Tavil, just amazing, amazing percussion. And he lives he's in the southern tip of India near Chennai, which is the largest port in the world, actually. Just amazing music from that region. So I'd love to go there someday and do a documentary on the music of that region.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, the tawil is just an insane instrument. I've played with some tawil players.
Have you?
Tell you that drum is almost as loud as a drum kit.
Yeah, just the one drum. And it's literally like a barrel with a really big rim that's like this round a radius. It's amazing. Steve, if you find a video real quickly by Abdul, please put that in the comments with some reference to what we're talking about. It's really interesting. Have you seen, Asaf, have you seen Steve Smith's work with the Carnatic? Yeah, that's quite impressive.
Actually, I know Steve, and actually I interviewed him for my channel in a series of interviews I did my channel about Coryell.
Nice.
Yes, and we had a long chat about some of his compositions and how he got into it. He got into this stuff much earlier than a lot of other guys that, now it's a kind of almost a mainstream thing. And there's plenty of YouTube videos, lots online. But when I joined that kind of thing, there was very little. When he joined, there was nothing.
Right,
so,
right. He got in early.
I mean, the first guy that started bringing all that to the West was Trichy Sankaran, who is an amazing mridangam player, a real master who was very well known in South India and immigrated to Canada, where in the 70s, I think, or even late 60s, and started a course in a university. I can't remember the name of the university.
Wow.
But he was the first guy, and he wrote an amazing book, which is called The Art of Coryell, which I think still to this day is one of the best books about Coryell. If anyone wants it in a book format, the information, his book is just the one to look for. Yeah,
that's great. Asaf, thank you so much for taking time on a Tuesday evening to join us all the way from London. And folks, thank you for following what we do and for joining myself and Asaf here on his first time hazing on Drum Talk TV. And we'll do this again. And I would love to see you when you come way out west to the southwestern United States. We'll catch up with each other in person. We'll do this again online. And let everybody know how they can follow you, all your different channels. And we'll put them out there as well. But go ahead and tell everybody where they can reach you.
Okay, so I have a Facebook page which I post most of those videos that some of those that you played earlier, the Time for Space ones, and also some of the Coryell ones if you are into that kind of stuff. So I have a Facebook page, I have an Instagram page which is kind of almost similar. I've got a channel on YouTube has got everything on it, basically. The Coryell stuff, the some drum solo stuff, some lessons, Coryell and drums, and also my video series as well. Otherwise, I'll be happy to see anyone in the next Soft Machine gig or anywhere awesome. In the world. Hopefully we'll come to your town.
That's great. Thank you so much. Hang on the line after we say goodbye to everybody. Folks, thank you again so much for joining us and following what we do. And we will see you soon with what's coming up. Let me just take a quick look at my old man paper calendar. Well, of course, on the 18th with my son Steve, who is our producer on Drum Talk TV. We also do a show called Yes Shift, which is simulcast on Drum Talk TV. We're going to have some new guy. He's like a new guitar guy. He sings. What's his name? Trevor Rabin, I think is his name. Trevor Rabin, we're going to have on Saturday at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, and 8 p.m. UK time. Trevor Rabin will be joining us. We have a few other really neat interviews as we wind down I can't believe we're in the middle of November and stuff. What is up with that? It's like time travel, right? It's like... So thanks for following what we do, folks. We will see you soon with more Drum Talk TV fun and Yes Shift. Thanks.
Thank you.